And welcome to the Portales and ENMU 9/11 memorial event honoring ENMU alumni Major Ron Milam. My name is Mike Miller. I serve as the Mayor Pro Tem here in the City of Portales, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies at today's event. But ask now that you please stand for the National Anthem, performed by our ENMU vocalists in the presentation of colors by the Cannon Air Force Base Honor Guard, followed by the invocation by Councilman Veronica Cordova.
Out and up. Right shoulder, heart. Forward, heart. Colors. Hope. Present. Heart.
And now our national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, where so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Right shoulder. Up. Colors turn. Heart.
Thank you, Stephanie, Jessica, and Marie for that beautiful rendition of the national anthem, and the Cannon Air Force Honor Guard for the presentation of colors. This time, I would like to welcome ENMU President Dr. James Johnston to the stage. Please be seated.
Good morning, and thank you for being here, and a welcome to our guests, and thank you for being a part of this ceremony. 9/11 was one of those days that changed who we are as a nation and changed our lives forever. We now take this opportunity to remember all those that we lost each year. This year we take a moment to especially remember one of our own, Major Ron Milam. I know as a cherished member of the Milam family, certainly a cherished member of our Greyhound family. I didn't have the opportunity to meet Major Milam, but I got to know a little bit of family through his brother Steve last night at dinner. And I certainly see the light that Major Milam brought to our campus and to our community, so I truly appreciate the opportunity to honor him. I think it speaks volumes to a life well spent when his name, after so many years, continues to be spoken, and his service and his legacy continues to be remembered. So we at ENMU will continue to do our part to remember his name and honor his legacy. So I thank you to the family for allowing us to do this. And again, welcome and thank you for being a part of this ceremony.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call to the podium now the mayor of the city of Portales, Mayor Ron Jackson.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Portales. I'm glad you're here. I wish it was under different circumstances. Milan, I appreciate you being here, and what your son and brother has done for our community is outstanding and for our country. 9/11 memory for me is just bringing the United States together. When all that happened, I mean, the first few days was fear, and we didn't know how to react to it. But when we understood what was going on, how our communities and how our great country came together. And we see the divide right now in the country, and by all means, we don't want anything like that to happen to bring us back together. But I think with prayer and brotherhood, we can bring our country back into the way it was at that time. So anyway, with that being said, I appreciate everyone being here. It's a great turnout. We used to have a memorial remembrance at the bank. I worked for J.P. Stone Community Bank, and David was instrumental in having that each year. And after his health failed a little bit, we weren't able to have that. So I'm thankful to Eastern for putting this on, having this event. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next, we're honored to have New Mexico Military Institute President and retired Army Major General Jerry Grizzle speak with us today. General, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Chancellor Johnson, Senator Engel, Regents, Mayor, members of the Milam family, and guests. Thank you for this opportunity to honor an Eastern New Mexico University alum and hero, Major Ron Milam. Thank you for this opportunity to honor him by sharing how 9/11 affected me personally, my family, and the lives of every citizen in the United States and quite possibly the world. There are days of the year that when you hear that date, no further explanation is required. December 7th, 1941 is an example. To the citizens of my home state, Oklahoma, April 19th, 1995, and May 3rd, 1999 are dates that everyone remembers and can tell you exactly what they were doing and where they were during the tragedies. September 11th, 2001, now commonly and simply known as 9/11, is the date that every United States citizen, if not every citizen in the world, remembers. April 19th, 1995, just like most everyone was doing on the morning of 9/11, I was at home preparing for my day. At 9:02 a.m., my day, and every citizen in Oklahoma's day, changed. Timothy McVeigh, upset about the way the federal government, particularly the FBI, had handled the Waco incident with the Branch Davidians, blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Special agent in charge of the Waco event was now stationed in Oklahoma City. The event killed 168 people. 19 were children in the daycare center that Timothy McVeigh called collateral damage. In the military, I was a member of the Oklahoma Army National Guard. I was the deputy commander of the unit that responded to the bombing. We immediately took over perimeter security around the building so that the first responders could concentrate on search and recovery efforts. That was my first exposure to large-scale consequence management operations involving interdepartmental, federal, state, city, and county agencies, coordinating their efforts under the command incident system, Unfortunately, it would not be my last. Oklahoma is known as Tornado Alley. On the evening of May 3rd, 1999, a large tornado touched down just southwest of Oklahoma City. As most tornadoes do, it started moving in a northeast direction. It stayed on the ground, which is rare for a tornado of this size. It moved into two small communities and did incredible damage and killed several people. It moved towards the south part of Oklahoma City and hit Moore, Oklahoma. Stayed on the ground and hit Midwest City, Dell City. Continued to move northeast and hit Choctaw, Oklahoma. It then hit the town of Stroud and wiped out a large outlet mall. It continued northeast, now almost to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and finally lifted when it hit the Arkansas River. It had been on the ground for over 100 miles. Unfortunately, another band of tornadoes touched down north of Oklahoma City and started moving northeast. The small town of Mulhall was destroyed completely. By the time this night of terror was over, 49 people were dead and over $1 billion of property damage had incurred. The tornado was the largest in recorded history in both size and power. The base of the tornado was over half a mile wide, and wind speeds were recorded in excess of 315 miles an hour. I'd been promoted in the National Guard and was now the commander of the same unit that responded to the Murrah bombing, and we were responsible for responding to this event. Unfortunately, if you're a member of the National Guard in Oklahoma, when incidents like this happen, you know there is a high likelihood you'll be mobilized to help the state deal with the damages. By 9:30 that evening, I was already at my armory, and 100 guardsmen had already reported. I was directly involved for the next 30 days, and I had soldiers out for the next 60 days, in some cases more, providing assistance to these communities. On September 11, 2001, I was at home again preparing for my day. Then the first plane hit the World Trade Center. Then the second plane hit. Certainly I understood this event would change and impact the United States. I had no idea at that point how it would affect me and my family. My military career progressed. I had received my second star as the Vice Commander of the Joint Warfighting Center in Suffolk, Virginia. As fate would have it, although assigned to a unit in Virginia, I was back in Oklahoma at the time. I immediately went to the headquarters of the Oklahoma National Guard to use their secure communications capabilities so I could make contact with my parent unit, which was United States Joint Forces Command. When I arrived there, I found out that the Adjutant General of Oklahoma was out of state, and all other generals of the Oklahoma National Guard were also out of state. I was the highest ranking general in the Oklahoma Guard in Oklahoma. At the time, I did what I could to assist the Guard in dealing with the issues they were dealing with and used that communications to contact my parent unit. When I made contact with Joint Forces Command, the Vice Commander, the Navy 3-star, said, "Jerry, you have to get back here." I asked why it was so important that I return. Everything had been grounded. All airplanes had been grounded, including military. There was no way that I could get back without driving 2 days to get there. He said, "You're the only general officer that has dealt with large-scale consequence management operations, and we need you here." I was finally able to get back on the 16th day of September and took temporary command of a unit called Joint Task Force Civil Support. This unit is the only one in the Department of Defense that's trained to respond to a weapons of mass destruction attack in the United States. All 5 of the CBRNE events, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and high-yield explosive. Like the name implies, civil support, we're responsible for assisting states and communities in disasters such as 9/11. I took permanent command in October and remained in command until December of 2004, over 3 years. Another issue when you deal inside the United States is posse comitatus. You cannot use the military to enforce the law. We can support, as the name of my command insinuated, but we cannot take command and use military operations inside the United States to enforce the law. For the next 3 years, I lived on a 4-hour deployment window. My NTR command had to be ready to deploy to the site of another event within 4 hours. For the 3 years, my command was behind the scenes at every national special security event in the United States. I had up to 2,000 highly trained professionals in all of these possibilities dispersed in the event site. Our job was not to prevent, our job was to mitigate if the bad guy was successful and deal with the damages of an attack. As a military officer, we all took an oath to defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. For me, Timothy McVeigh forever changed the understanding of a domestic enemy. With that oath, also, we as military members signed a check payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including our lives. I never had my check cashed. On September 11, 2001, Major Ron Milam had his check cashed. May God bless him for his service. May God bless his family as they deal with this tragedy. And may God bless this institution, his alma mater. May God bless the United States of America. Again, thank you for this opportunity to be here.
Thank you, General. I apologize to the crowd. I skipped over an important item on our agenda, but now may be the proper time to do that. So at this time, I would like to ask Ron Cordova, Counselor for City of Portales, to come give us an invocation.
Thank you, Mike. I think God won't be too mad at us as long as we put him at the center today. If you would all like to rise for the invocation, please. Heavenly Father, we come to you and we ask that you give us grace upon our community and our nation. That through war and terrorist attacks, you stay at the center because you are the creator of nations and the healer of hearts. Lord, 22 years ago, our nation was brought to our knees, and by your loving grace, you have helped us rise up and become stronger. Lord, let us never forget the day where so many came together and so many lives were lost due to senseless acts. We pray for the families who lost mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, children, and every family member in between. On that sad day, Father God, we lost so much, but your children came home to your paradise, and we hold on to your promise of eternal life, to once again be reunited with our loved ones. In closing, I would like to pray for all firefighters, first responders, and volunteers, and family members that live with this trauma day in and day out. For we know you are always with them. In your holy name we pray. Amen. The memory of 9/11 invokes a range of emotion from sadness to unity, and our nation came together in time of adversity. While this is a solemn day in our country and around the world, it also serves as a reminder of the strength and resilience that can emerge in the face of unimaginable challenges. We will now take a moment of silence to honor the sacrifices made this day 22 years ago and to remember a day that we vowed to never forget. Thank you.
Again, I apologize for the change in the agenda. You know, basketball, ROTC, and academics all contributed to Ron's time at ENMU as a student. Our next guest speaker is someone who played a huge role in Ron's basketball time at ENMU, and we're delighted he was able to be here to participate with us today. Without further ado, let me introduce Coach Earl Dillon.
Needless to say, I'm really privileged to be here this morning. It's an honor. You know, every once in a while in life, you come across a guy that's a rainmaker. And Ron was a rainmaker. You know, there's people that get rained on, then there's other people that are rainmakers. Ron was a rainmaker. He aspired to make a difference in everything he did. He made things happen not only for himself, but his teammates. He was very self-driven, very committed, and had a tremendous feeling of responsibility. I'll never forget the first time I saw Ron. It was at the Oklahoma State basketball tournament. And I could tell right away that, man, this guy is a leader. And the reason for that was, it was the way he affected others. At a very young age, he had the ability to get people to do what needed to be done. And so, we decided to recruit Ron to Panhandle State in Oklahoma. He was a starter for us. That's where he got involved in the ROTC, and that's when we started having a problem. Because it didn't take long for me to recognize that this kid is special. Special. So we would always fight about, I thought he should go into be a lawyer, not that we don't have enough, present company excluded, okay? And go back to Oklahoma and be the governor. That's how I thought he was. That's how I looked at it. And we fought for 4 years about that. We talked occasionally about it. But Ron's second year at Panhandle, the job at Eastern came open. And I was fortunate enough to get it. And so before I left, I had to have a team meeting to tell our team that I'm leaving. We were very good. And so I did so. I went back to my office. When you change jobs, you start packing up. All of a sudden, there he is. There's Ron. He's got tears in his eyes. He said, "Coach, you brought me here. Can I go with you to Eastern?" And I said, "Ron, you can go anywhere with me." And that's how he got to Eastern. He was a starter here. He was our captain. He got involved even more with the ROTC program. He joined, pledged, the Omega Psi Phi, was a Q dog, okay? He was a proud Greyhound, and he was a proud American. And more than that, he was a proud man. I often thought, as the years passed, what made him the way he was? What made him the way he was? He was smart. I always used to tell Ron, the fast run from the slow, the strong take from the weak, but the smart take from everybody. Everybody. He had an infectious smile. I'll never forget his smile. He was kind, humble. He had a unique personality. And boy, I needed his help sometimes. He had the ability to say one word and piss off the whole team. He also had the ability to say the very next word and everyone was running and hugging him. And that's when I would say to him, "Ron, I need your help with Anthony," or "I need your help with Rick." You know, coaches can't reach everybody. But Ron was who he was. But then, after getting to meet his family, Effie, Tommy, Steve, it's his family. It's not only who he was, but it was his family and the environment that they put him in that made him what he was. And that became very crystal to me. And boy, did Ron love his family. Ron was a point guard. And when you're a point guard, you have the ball. And that's hard. The ball makes the game hard. Okay? And therefore you have to have responsibility. And he really knew what he was going to do with the ball and how he was going to handle each and every one of his teammates. And I admired these qualities so much in Ron. For a young man, his ability to focus on important things, just the important things, and what he could control was unbelievable. Unbelievable as a young man. He had tremendous self-discipline. They would have weekend drills, right? Weekend drills in the ROTC. Never late, and always came back ready to go. Ready to go. His discipline, he knew what the task was. He was going to do it the best he could. And more importantly, he was going to do it every time it was going to ask to be done. He was not one of those guys that would make a mistake and then run down the court and go, my bad. He was not a my bad guy. Okay? Like kids do today. I wasn't a my bad coach either. But because of his self-discipline, he possessed the number one team quality as a teammate. Number one quality as a teammate. He was consistent. You have to have a lot of discipline to be consistent, to be on that line of predictability. That's tough to do. Very tough to do. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about Ron's character. There's three parts of somebody's character: how you think, your habits, and your priorities. Ron's thinking, he was a strong thinker. He was a guy that he was a made-up mind guy. He never had what I called stinking thinking. Okay? Never ever had. And he never let his feelings or emotions dictate what he was going to do. Ever. I never saw any of that in him. His habits. He had tremendous work habits. I'll never forget, we're down there, and we always talked about, being the point guard, he's the coach on the floor. Being a point guard, we'd always have these conversations. And we'd always talk about do the do's. Okay? And, do what's right, know what to do what you're asked to do what you say you're going to do. We would always have those kind of conversations. So we're on the road down in San Angelo. We're getting ready to play Angelo State. And we're out in the hallway watching Wayne's team kick the Ramblers. And Ron comes up to me and whispers to me, says, "Coach, I think we need the dues." I said, "What?" "We need the dues." So I get them all together. We start talking about the dues. They start dancing, or getting them up, they're all going. And then I would always pick out somebody. And I would go, "Ron, there's more do's in this world than there are don'ts. If you spend your time doing the do's, you don't have time to do the don'ts. And if you could, you would, so you can't, so you don't." We went out 1 by 40. Unbelievable. And that was the right call. He knew we needed the do's. When you get on the road somewhere, and you're not really at concert pitch, sometimes you need the dues. His priorities. The vision, he always knew where he was. It was never a problem, perception versus reality with young players. They think they're doing this, but they're really not doing that. It's never ever a problem. He knew where he wanted to be, and he knew how to get there. And I would always say, Ron, talking about our team all the time. I would say, Ron, it's not WHO, it's HOW, man. It's how you do stuff. It's how you do it. Once in a while, you come across someone like Ron Milam that is extremely special. And we'll all see Ron again. We'll all see him again. Because we're all headed the same place. He just beat us there. Remember, freedom's not free. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Senator Ingram, if you'll come forward, I think you have some presentations.
Thank you, Michael. It's certainly my privilege to be a part of this for all of the citizens in New Mexico through the New Mexico State Senate. And we pass things sometimes on the Senate floor that are truly meaningful, and this is one of them. And this is here to recognize the acknowledgement and the sacrifice of Major Ron Milam and his sacrifice for this country. And we have done a memorial here for the family, and I hope that this will be part of what they can live for and enjoy and realize the greatness in this man. I know they can. And if you could come forward now, I'd like to present this to you. Basically, if I could read this memorial to you. The New Mexico State Senate does hereby extend its recognition and acknowledgement to Major Ronald Milam. Whereas Major Ronald Milam, son of Tommy and Effie Milam, attended Eastern New Mexico University, successfully completed training, Eastern New Mexico's Army Reserve Training Program, played basketball for Coach Earl Diddle, and earned his bachelor's degree in 1991. Whereas Major Milam was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army, serving as platoon leader and executive officer in Germany, assistant operations officer and battery commander in Korea, Patriot training officer for the Saudi Arabian forces before his posting to the Pentagon as a military assistant to the Secretary of the Army, Manpower and Reserve Affairs. Whereas Major Milam served with honor, the Award of the Legion of Merit, the Purple Heart, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Army Commendation Medal, and Army Achievement Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Southwest Asia Service Medal, Bronze Star, the Cold War Certificate, and the Parachutist Badge during his 10 years of military service. Whereas Major Milam was a devoted spouse of Jacqueline Link, and loving father of a daughter, Joa Olvia, and son Ron Milam Jr. Whereas Major Milam set a standard of conscientiousness and hard work as a student, loving commitment to his family, 10 years of exemplary service in the military, giving his last full measure of devotion on the morning of September 11th, 2001. And where his personal traits of hard work, dedication, his exemplary service record, and his devotion to his family and his friends, Major Milam has earned the respect and recognition of his university, as well as his community, his country, in setting a standard of service and dedication that deserves recognition. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Senate of the State of New Mexico, that recognition be extended to Major Milam for his heroic actions to be recognized September 11th, 2023. 22nd year after his tragic death, and attention be paid to his ultimate sacrifice. This is from the New Mexico State Senate and all the people of New Mexico. Thank you very much. also need to acknowledge two folks in Major Milam's life, and that's Oscar Robinson and Earl Biddle. We have these certificates for each one. If you come forward, we'd like to present them to you. There you go. Both of you. Yeah, you're Oscar. Thank you. Thank you. You're the one that put this all together, and you and Earl are the best part of this gentleman's life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Engel. We now have presentations from the ENMU Board of Regents, and Regent Lance Powell will come forward for those presentations.
Good morning. It is my honor to be here and to have the privilege to recognize and honor a great alumnus who completed training at ENMU's Army ROTC program, played basketball, and earned his bachelor's degree in 1991. It is hard to believe that it is 22 years since a terrorist attack and his passing, but his memory and legacy are not forgotten. I still remember where I was on that morning, along with everyone in this room. We will never forget. In 2002, Major Milam Memorial Scholarship was established to honor the memory and legacy of an ENMU alumnus, athlete, and American service member. This scholarship has directly assisted 14 students, totaling $35,800. In February of 2023, the ENMU Foundation Board of Directors designated an additional $25,000 to make this a permanent endowed fund, ensuring the scholarship and Major Milam's legacy continues to impact the lives of ENMU students and for many, many years to come. In January, the Board of Regents, two of them are up here with me, your President of the Board, Philip Bustos, and Vice President Trish Ruiz. We adopted a formal resolution honoring our alumnus, and I would like to read a section of that resolution. Whereas, by his personal traits of hard work and dedication, his exemplary service record, and his devotion to his family and his friends, Major Milam has earned the respect and recognition of his university as well as his community and his country, setting a standard of service and dedication that deserves the recognition of students, faculty, staff, alumni, and others. Again, on behalf of the Board of Regents, it is our honor to present Major Milam's family with a formal resolution from the Eastern New Mexico University Board of Regents. If we can have you come up.
Thank you, Regents. At this time, I'd like to give the opportunity to Tommy, Steve, Effie to come to the podium and make any remarks that you would like to make this morning.
I thought I would jot some things down. I was talking to my sisters about, I come from a family that there's 6 sisters and 3 brothers, 3 boys in the family. And one of my brothers says,
deceased and one of the sisters are gone. But I was talking to them about this event, and they told me to keep it short. Keep it short. They know that I'm kind of long-winded sometimes. So I said, well, the only way I can do that is probably just to write something down, and that way I can stay on task. But I want to say to the president of the university, the staff, and to all of those, so I don't miss anybody, to all of those that were involved in putting this together, I want to give you a special thanks for organizing this event, expressing my sincere appreciation. Now, for what has been done today, this has been tremendous. Coach Dillon, I was able to go out and visit with him. Well, when I went out to see Ron at Pentagon State University, he had a lot of confidence in Coach Dillon. He thought the world of him, and I see why too. But as a former retired educator, I tried to instill a lot in Ron about getting his degree. Education was very important to me, and I tried to do that by focusing on in 3 areas. One area was to make sure he goes to the library. I wanted to make sure he goes to the library. Go to the library often. Ron told me one time, he said, Dad, he says, there's not very many of the athletes going to the library. I said, don't worry about it. You continue to go. And he did. The second thing that I focused on with him was for him to maintain a focus of his personal goals. Maintain a focus of his personal goals. And the third thing that I talked to him a lot about was prioritizing his time. Make sure you know what you're doing every day, every hour of the day. Where are you going, what you got to do, taking care of your responsibilities and that sort of thing. And Ron, he was a good listener. He listened and he tried to do what you asked him to do. He was just that way. So this scholarship that you named in his honor is in direct alignment with his achievement values as well as his outreach to help others, because he was a people person. Now, I want to extend a special thanks to Mr. Oscar Robinson, who extended a gracious, warm invitation to me to come up here. Immediately, we hit it off. We realized we knew a lot of the same people. Not only did we know a lot of the same people, but Oscar Robinson, my dad's name was Oscar. My name is Oscar. And the guy that I played football in high school with at the defensive tackle position, his name was Oscar Robinson, and it was spelled the exact same way. So I'm just saying, there's a connection there. So he was very cordial and very gracious in his invitation to get me to come up here, and I couldn't resist. And I want to finish by telling you a little story. On 9/11, that brought a tremendous amount of grief to a lot of people. And I wasn't spared. I found myself going fishing about 2 or 3 times a week. And I'd go to the same bait shop, same lake. I'd get back home about 9:30 that night. And I had to do all of this just to cope with the loss of my beloved son. Now, getting back home at 9:30 and then having to go to work, it was kind of late, but I had to do it. But on this particular night, I got back home and my boat seat was missing, the rear boat seat. And that wasn't Murphy's Law. I got back home, no boat seat on the rear. That was about a 20-mile drive. But I drove all the way back out to the lake looking for that boat seat. Couldn't find it. I spent the next 2 weeks trying to match that rear boat seat to the front boat seat. I couldn't do it. Impossible. Nobody had it. The boat wasn't about 3 years old, but I couldn't do it. So about 3 weeks later, I found myself falling into grief again. And I had to go fishing again. So I went back to the lake. I was going back out there to fish. And as I drove through the bait shop, there was this lady, ran out, and she was pointing at my boat. She was the store clerk. She ran out and pointing at my boat, and she said, you lost your boat seat. You lost your boat seat. And I looked at her, and she was shouting, and I said, yeah, I did. She said, I've got it. I've got it. It's inside. People have been trying to buy this seat from me, and I wouldn't give it to them. She said, I'm going to give it to you. And she took me inside, and she gave me the boat seat. Now, on that day, God touched my heart in a way that only God can do. My healing process started. This young lady, she didn't know me. She didn't know anything about me. She'd probably seen me drive through there on several occasions. But she didn't know what I was going through. I was sinking into depression. And by her performing this act of kindness that she didn't have to do, she could have sold that boat or done anything, that seat, or she could have done anything with it. But the same as what had happened on 9/11, that tragedy, it took so much out of so many people. And they didn't know any of it. It just happened. But this lady gave me a simple thing as a boat seat. And it touched my heart and started me into a healing process. I am grateful to you for what you have done for me. Thank you.
To all you great people, Coach Dillon, so glad to see you and all of you wonderful people. Coming here today just brought back a lot of memories when I came down to Ron's graduation, and I just started thinking, I told my son, oh, I feel so good being here. And I just want to thank you all for just remembering him, remembering us, and inviting us down. Over the years, I've been 22 years, and I feel it was yesterday, but during this time, I've been traveling every year. I go to Washington, I go someplace, somebody's invited me someplace to honor Ron. So I thank you all for remembering us, and it feels so good to come down here. Thank you, Oscar, for remembering to get us down here. Coach Bill used to come out of high school and see me in the school I was teaching there. He'd come out there and I would sit out there and cry for about 30 minutes or 35 minutes. But I just thank you all for remembering us, and I love the school. I was telling Steve, I said, maybe they give me a job down here just part-time. Although I'm a retired teacher, but I would just like to come down here once in a while and just do some little stuff down here, just to walk. If I just walk out here and do something, but I love this place. So thank you so much for all you're doing, and thank you all for inviting us. We love you, and God bless you all for thinking about us.
I just want to say a couple of words. Thank you guys so much to all the distinguished guests. Had a great dinner last night with Dr. Johnston and Senator Engel and Rose and Oscar and so many people last night. It was a wonderful time just remembering Ron and being welcomed by so many. Obviously, we have so many stories to tell. I think Coach Dillon did the best job for us all, so thank you, Coach Dillon, for that. I think if there's anything I want to leave you with about Ron, about my brother, is that in addition to everything that Coach Dillon said, one thing that he taught me was to honor your obligation. And you can hear that through what Coach Dillon was saying today. He was a big commitment person. He stuck to his commitments. Whatever he signed up for, he stuck to it. And that stayed with me throughout the years, and I'm thankful for that. But more than that, I was in Washington, D.C. with Ron visiting. We were at a family gathering one night, and the gathering was going on a little longer, and I wanted him to stay. He wanted to go home. He had his new baby and his wife, and he was newly married. And he said, I told my wife I'd be home at a certain time, so I have to go. I said, hey, can't you just stay a little while longer? He said, look, if I always go where I'm supposed to be, he said, if I always go where I'm supposed to go, I'll always be where I'm supposed to be. On 9/11, he was asked to go to stand in a meeting for his boss. And as Coach Diddle said, he did what he was asked. He had a servant's heart. My brother gave his life to Christ not too long, sometime before 9/11. He had a servant's heart before then, but once he got saved, he had even more of a servant's heart. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing that day. He went where he was supposed to be. He was in the place where he was supposed to be. I don't know why God took him on 9/11, but I do believe that it was God's will to bring him home at that time. I'm thankful for that. But before he left this earth, he gave his life to Christ. And that's what I'm most thankful for, and that's what gives me the greatest comfort. Thank you, guys. God bless you.
Okay, thank you again, Effie, Tommy, Steve, for attending today, being here with us. All the speakers, in ensuring that we will never forget the events and the lives lost of 9/11. Before we conclude, we have a tribute video put together by Lonnie Berry to commemorate Major Ron Milam and the legacy he left at ENMU, and we will follow that with playing of tabs.
Ronald D. Milam was born March 11, 1968 in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Ron graduated from Muskogee High School and went on to play basketball at Oklahoma Panhandle State University under Coach Earl Diddle. Coach Diddle transferred to Eastern Mexico University in 1988. Ron transferred well and became a part of the Greyhound basketball team. Ron played guard for the ENMU basketball teams in the 1989-90 and 1990-91 season. He was ranked second at Lone Star Conference in assists both seasons and led the Hounds to a 34-24 record. On graduation in 1991, Ron was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the ROTC program at Eastern Mexico University. Ron rose to the rank of major and was assigned as assistant to the Secretary of the Army and stationed at the Pentagon. On the morning of September 11, 2001, at 9:37, Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, killing 125 people and injuring others. Ron Milam lost his life on that day. Ron's family, his friends, and his Greyhound family mourn his loss and honor him for his service for our country.
Please stand for the playing of taps by ENMU student Genesis Reese. Once again, thank you for joining us today to honor 9/11 and to honor Major Ron Milam. If you have time, we encourage you to join us here in the ballroom foyer for light refreshments and some fellowship. Thank you.